close. Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I would just like to unwrap the two aspects of it. On the, as General Cody said, the basic answer why you believe there was no deception at the local level was a mistaken belief throughout that it should be close held until the investigation was complete. The family was notified 5 weeks later. Was that when the investigation was complete?
It was when the investigation was complete, and they did understand that the 15-6 investigation had to be signed off on by Central Command. So General Sattler, the J5, acting on behalf of General Abzade, signed off, and it was after that that the...
That was the 5-week sort of
yes.
time frame. Going up to General, Lieutenant General, now Major General, or soon to be perhaps Major General Kinzinger. Kinzinger. You've come up with an answer why you think people on the ground mistakenly believed they should close hold that information. In disputing the cover-up idea, what is the answer as to why General Kinzinger deceived the investigators? And in fact, when you say there's no cover-up, is in fact he charged with not the initial mistake, but covering up, that is lying to investigators?
Your first question, how do you explain how he handled the matter in the aftermath of the tragedy? He believed, as did all the soldiers in his command, that you kept this information close hold, including not tell the family until such time as the investigation was complete. Contravention of Army regulations, DOD policy, but that is what he believed.
The offenses took place after the 5-week period. I'm sorry.
I beg your pardon?
The offenses he's charged with took place after
seven months later.
7 months later.
Much later than the 5-week
right.
period.
Yeah.
And in that case, he was asked about when he knew about the friendly fire investigation, and he provided false official statements to the investigator and later to the DIG. He had said earlier that had he known what he was supposed to do, he would have done it. He didn't know either. But what General Wallace found, and I agree with this conclusion, is that General Kinzinger, when faced with questions about what he knew when he knew it, chose to provide false official statements.
So whatever deception he may have engaged in, as is found, was not to cover up anything that happened on the ground. It was to cover up his own role and behavior afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that we need to fully understand. Throughout every investigation, the 7 investigations, at the company command level, well, first off, right at the platoon level, within 24 hours, an after-action review was done, and all the soldiers were asked, and they went through what happened in that valley. And then you had the investigation by Captain Scott, and then you had a follow-on investigation directed by the regimental commander. Then that was the one that was waiting to be signed. Through all of that, up and down the chain, all the investigations found that everybody that was doing it was trying to seek the truth and be 100% sure that this was a fratricide, not an enemy, or vice versa. They wanted to be 100% sure so that when they told the family, they got it right this time. And so as the investigators looked at it and verified by the DOD IG as well as General Scott Wallace, from General Kinzinger all the way down to the company level, everybody was seeking the truth to make sure that they got it right. And that is why General Wallace came to those conclusions. The second part of it, once the large investigation was directed by then Acting Secretary Les Brownlee 7 months later, that is when who knew what when came into play, and it had nothing to do with suppressing or anything else. Is when did you know about the friendly fire, and it goes to the timely notification of the family. And
you'll see it in the information, the reprimand from General Wallace as well as in my censure. General Wallace concluded that General Kinzinger provided false official statements in order to protect himself from criticism.
Two quick questions. Do you know when the board will convene and how will that information be released publicly? And then second, Mr. Secretary, the Tillman family has spoken to the media several times and they've been unhappy with these first 7 investigations. What will you do? What will you say to them if they're unhappy again with these findings and they want to pursue this further? Will you continue to investigate again, or?
As far as the grade determination board, I have directed the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs to convene the board, and because Lieutenant General Kinsinger was a 3-star, the board will be made up of 4-star generals. He will convene it as quickly as possible. I can't give you any time certain for when they will complete their work. They will conduct a review. They'll give General Kinsinger an opportunity to respond, and then they will make a recommendation to me. It's a non-binding recommendation, but they'll make a recommendation to me. As far as what we do to meet the very understandable needs of the Tillman family, I understand how they have grown to believe that they do not trust the credibility of the Army handling this matter. We have made mistakes over and over and over, an incredible number of mistakes in handling this, and we've destroyed our credibility in their eyes as well as in the eyes of many others as well. And what we have done here is do our best to determine what the truth is, and do our best to explain to them and to the country what we have found. And I don't know more that we can do.
Any last questions? Last question.
I do. You've described a litany of errors and mistakes and going more than 3 years involving a lot of people, yet all the blame falls on General Kinsinger. I'm just trying to make some sense of that. He happens to be retired. Is there a coincidence there?
The fact that he
Did lots of things wrong, it seems, but he's the only one who's really being singled out for the harshest punishment.
When you look at all of the events that have led to where we are today, the misinformation, the misunderstanding, and you look at what General Kinsinger's role was, and had he performed his job properly, had he performed his duty, we wouldn't be standing here today. He should have, upon notification that it was friendly fire, should have convened a safety board. That safety board would have been an outside group of eyes, would have gone into theater, and would have immediately commenced an investigation, and would have added an outside of the chain of command review of this situation, as well as recommendations on how we make sure it doesn't happen again. He, as the administrative chain of command senior leader, he also had the casualty notification responsibility. When he became aware that there was friendly fire suspected, under Army regulations, he is supposed to notify the family that the cause of death is under investigation. He knew that as early as, I believe, the 25th, but certainly no later than the 29th, before the May 3rd memorial, before this matter had gotten very far along, and had he done his duty then and notified the family, we wouldn't be standing here today. Had he notified Secretary of the Army Les Brownlee, as he should have done, we also would have had an opportunity to ensure that the family notification was done properly, the safety board was done properly, and also would have given an opportunity to make sure that the 15-6 was done properly. So I believe the buck stops with General Kinsinger. He was the senior leader in the chain of command for administrative control for the 75th Ranger Regiment. Had he done his job, all these other errors, these innocent errors, but serious errors, they would have been harmless errors had he done his job.
Are there any officers that you didn't mention that received letters of concern, letters of reprimand, or are the only people that you've mentioned today the ones who've got any type of punishment?
There are other officers who received punishment, as well as members of the Ranger platoon that were punished. The Army longstanding DOD policy is to not discuss any type of sanctions for officers below general officer grade. So everybody else that was reviewed by General Wallace or was sanctioned as a member of the Ranger team, they were below general officer grade, and we don't discuss those sanctions publicly.
Just one more in before we go.
It's up to the Secretary.
Just one more.